New poll out of Florida revealing why that state's governor may be former President Trump's biggest threat in the 2024 GOP primary. Data for Progress asking likely Republican Florida voters which candidate they would support for president if the primary was tomorrow. And you can see Governor DeSantis edging out the former president by just 2 percentage points at this point. Joining us now to talk more about that potential 2024 matchup and to take a temperature check as we sit just 2 days out from the midterms, Niall Stanage, White House columnist with our partners at The Hill. Niall, great to see you.
Great to see you too, Natasha.
All right, Niall, so it's obviously very early to be talking about this. Neither Trump nor DeSantis have formally declared their candidacy. But what do you make of these new numbers out of Florida?
They're significant, and they underline exactly the point that you raised, that Governor DeSantis is really the only major threat to former President Trump in the battle for the Republican nomination. Now, we think that the former president is going to seek the nomination. In fact, there have been specific dates suggested just a few weeks from now, during which he might launch his campaign. If he does, he would clearly be the front runner, but the one person for him and his allies to fear would be Governor DeSantis. And this poll just underlines that one more time.
And Trump has certainly been on the campaign trail, it seems, for months now ahead of the midterms. And now former President Obama also making the rounds as we race towards the finish line. How would you gauge the level of momentum on both sides tonight?
It depends what poll you look at if you're talking about voter enthusiasm. There have been a couple of polls just this weekend that have provided, honestly, slightly contradictory evidence in that respect. One showing more Republican voter enthusiasm, one basically showing a jump ball or an equal race in that regard. I would say, broadly speaking, Natasha, in politics, dislike or opposition is often a stronger motivating factor. One would obviously expect Republican voters to want to register a protest vote or a vote against not just the Biden administration, but Democratic control of Congress. So to that extent, it wouldn't surprise me if Republican enthusiasm proved stronger when we come to Tuesday.
And the betting markets, of course, really like Republicans' chances to capture control of both the House and the Senate. How are you feeling about their odds?
I think it's almost certain at this point that Republicans will take the House. It would be a really major surprise if Democrats held on there. Republicans only need 5 seats. The projections we're seeing in most polls are north of 5. Now, the Senate is an entirely different matter. The Senate obviously split 50-50 right now. Leland just took you through some of the real battleground states in that respect. A lot of those races are balanced on a knife edge. You think of Georgia, you think of Pennsylvania, you think of Nevada, the 3 seats most likely to flip. Very difficult to call the Senate. Going to be a fascinating election night, watching the results come in from those states and others.
Oh, absolutely. And sort of a big picture question for you. You know, some Republican candidates have already raised questions about election security, some even refusing to say that they would accept the results should they lose. Are you anticipating that we will see a host of candidates refusing to concede?
I think we will likely do so in the immediate aftermath of the election. The reasons for that are a little bit complicated, but broadly speaking, protesting election results has become much more commonplace, much more widely accepted on the Republican side of the partisan divide. Obviously, we have a number of candidates who have backed up former President Trump's false claims of election fraud in 2020. Now, we have seen people in the Republican Party say that eventually the results will be accepted. They just want people to be able to challenge results in court or to ask for recounts. Of course, those kind of things, asking for a recount, is a candidate is within his or her rights to do that. But we have candidates. I notice you showed Carrie Lake, the Republican gubernatorial nominee in Arizona, in the visuals there. She's someone who has been very equivocal as to whether she would accept the result if she loses her race.
All right, Niall Stanage live for us tonight. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Natasha.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.